Welcome back to episode number 2. I am your host, Josh Allen, and I'm excited that I am joined today all the way from Dallas, Texas, Michael Martin with MM Solar Advisory. Michael, welcome.
I'm delighted to be here, Josh. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And, you're in my old stomping grounds, growing up in the Dallas area. Has weather been pretty mild wintry wise? I know there was a storm that hit a couple weeks ago, but
Yeah, it's been a good winter in terms of aside from that 4-day thing we had mid-January. So yeah, it's been good, but I don't want to talk about it because winter's not over. I don't want to jinx anything. So
no, that
let's
is
move on.
true. That is true. Absolutely. Well, I'm so excited to have Michael join us because Michael and I connected paths. It's been over a year or two, and we'll kind of dive into how that connection happened. But I first just want to I like to rewind the clock a little bit and just kind of ask Michael, when did your world kind of begin to collide and intersect in this kind of solar space? What was kind of the things that grabbed your attention that really started pushing you in this direction in this industry?
Yeah, great question. I like to talk about this because it's good to think about it and recreate it and share it. And what I first say is I went to the University of Texas in Austin in the early 80s. And so Austin's, as you know, keep Austin weird. Austin has always been a weird place. And things over those years got planted in me that finally, decades later, after graduating and then being in software and IT, having 4 kids, and then all these things kind of the environmentalist me, the sustainability person me kind of slowly, subconsciously started to rise up in me. And then finally I got in touch with it consciously back about 2009, 2010, when you might recall the economy was all messed up and it was a bad time to be in any business. So I thought, hey, great time to change industry.
That's right.
I just bolted from the IT industry, software business, and thought, I've wanted to be in clean energy because, as I like to tell people, as a conscious human, I'm trying to help businesses adopt clean energy, zero pollution, high value. It's got all these great attributes, and that is my mission. So I really got in touch with my purpose as a working person, which has always been, I'd kind of been messing around in these things on nonprofit side and supporting causes. But then I said, I'm all in now. So it just took a while. And then having 4 kids made me think, I think we can do some things better for the time I'm still here, and then certainly for future generations. And you hear that a lot, but it's real for me. And it's really one of my motivators why I made this change. And I just picked solar because for various reasons, I picked solar.
Well, I'll kind of dig into that because when you mentioned 2009, 2010, the economy is, it is what it is. Not a good space at all. Clean energy, was there a part of you, certainly mission motivated? I hear that coming out of you. Was there a part of you that was looking at Texas, looking at the world going, I think there's some business adoptions around clean energy that I'd like to help lead? Or what was it about, solar inside of the clean energy space that you felt yourself leaning into? What kind of grabbed your attention there?
Well, solar, like my previous career, is really technology that's going through a similar, better, faster, cheaper evolution and growth. Just like, right. Where's my phone, right? Just like these things, right? That's I lived through the mainframe era where nobody ever envisioned anybody having a computer in their pocket. Now we all do. So the fact that solar is a little bit more tech as opposed to wind, which is also very large scale, always remote, big scale, large projects, more mechanical. It's just a different kind of technology, if you will. So I was kind of drawn naturally, I think, because of my previous career to solar. And then in terms of the business models, now, because I started in utility scale, which was a business model that was pretty well defined, even from the earlier generations and different types and traditional power industry, right? But the commercial and behind the meter aspects of solar continue to evolve today. And that was most interesting to me because I was a B2B guy in my previous career. So I was also naturally oriented toward talking to Josh, the CEO, about a project that would have big long-term value strategically. I like commas and zeros, not dollars and cents. So I didn't want to do homeowner call on
Yeah.
Josh and, family. I wanted to do CEO B2B type solar. So, and talk about the long-term value proposition, because that's kind of what I like to work on, think about, and help enable.
So I'm going to keep digging in there because this is so fascinating to me, kind of how our paths, in this clean energy space and this, again, behind the meter, right? So I think to a lot of people listening, there's the utility scale, which is a completely different animal. I think we'd all agree it's necessary, it's important, but the behind the meter customer really allows us as business leaders that, as you described, to sit down one-to-one and really help them grasp and understand where they can both play a role in not just the sustainability, but the financial impact. So I'm kind of curious, do you remember back your first few conversations, maybe your first few relationships where you began to have this conversation? Who were those and what did those look like?
Yeah. Great question. Let me flash back to that. So it was pre-COVID, but not by much. I started this part, Solar Advisory, in like 2018, later in 2018. So I had about a year and a half run up until when, the stuff hit the fan, right? And the commercial real estate industry who's we're talking about is basically the audience for the B2B market, who has all these commercial properties. Talk about getting turned upside down in 2020. So the earlier conversations before that was a lot of interest in what's this all about, because, at this stage, that's 5-6 years ago. That's a long time now in this industry at the pace of change and the way climate, sustainability, environmental stuff, whatever language regeneration you like to use, is now, it's in the news, not every week or every day. It's in the news every hour now, which is super cool. So awareness has gone way up, but it was all about educating them on all the value points. And some are qualitative, which are the more challenging ones, but the quantitative ones are certainly there too, like measured on the spreadsheet so your finance guys can go get it, right?
That's right.
But we can talk more about the qualitative stuff, because I've got a lot of, it's kind of been like a social science experiment for me that I didn't realize I was getting into, which is dealing with CEOs and business owners who are thinking about something new, because historically power just happens magically. And now
magically, that's right.
Now it's this new thing they might have to put their hands on, or have their team put their hands on, and take some ownership of it. So it's changing so much. And so there's a huge educate me, help me learn. And then how that leads to action is all over the map. A lot of times it's just, okay, I want to learn, thank you, bye. And, sometimes it's, let's do something, right? And that's going to increase. I'm confident.
That's right.
Well, and I think you said it exactly right. So I'm going to kind of hone in a little bit on the qualitative aspects, because I think that's something, yes, a spreadsheet will tell the story you want it to tell, and it's very important for the financials to understand the spreadsheet financial analysis to a project and its impact, short-term, long-term. But what I think is really interesting is kind of unlocking in the mind of the decision makers, leaders, board of directors, CEOs, the qualitative characteristics that this decision and the impact it's going to have on companies, organizations, communities, et cetera. So let's peel that onion on the qualitative characteristics, and I'll ask kind of the same question, but maybe slightly two different ways. Number one, what were some of the early conversations or dialogue around those qualitative characteristics that you were leading? And then maybe let's fast forward to today. What are the characteristics that you think are hitting home with business leaders, CEOs, those that are leading organizations, that you feel like actually carry weight when you introduce, you educate them on, and you really begin to kind of walk them down that path?
Yeah, it's getting better. It's trending the right way, but the hardcore spreadsheet. Let me comment real quick on that bit. The spreadsheet quantitative stuff, right? The whole. There's a lot of ways to look at the ROI, the value, the payback, whatever language you want to use on clean energy projects like we're talking about, and solar on the rooftop, for instance, of a big commercial building. So it's thus easy for people to find a way to poke at it, prod it, and go, it's not quite what we need. We're going to wait for things to get even better, cheaper, or we get more pressure to do this. So I still find, because I wanted to share this for those who listen to this, I still find that the dominant mentality is when am I going to get payback? Because American business culture is very term oriented. And this is stuff that lasts, as you know, for decades. And it's already proven. This isn't a guess anymore, but this stuff lasts for decades. It will outlast the CEO I'm serving because there'll be somebody else running the company by then. So to me, it's getting in touch with, as a leader in your business, what is your heart and soul where does that want you to go? And then don't be afraid of the quantitative stuff because it's not going to have a 3-month payback. That isn't going to happen. So don't be afraid of that. Trust what you think is the right thing to do as a human. And then the qualitative business metric is more around brand value. And then you start working around, new people will want to work for us. New customers will want to trade with us or stay with us. Investors and lenders will give us money because we're checking all the, the environmental social governance, the ESG box, at least on the E side, right? Because that's where we can help them with, for instance, rooftop solar. It's gonna check your E box and ESG, which is, how do you measure that? But if investors want it and employees want it and the market wants it, then it's important. Check that box, and solar will serve you every year. You don't have to redo it. That's another beautiful thing about it. So it's a very interesting thing, Josh, between the quantitative and qualitative piece. And I do find that I think the conversation just in these last few years in business is getting less fearful of talking, especially guys, about your heart and soul versus I'm looking for like-hearted people. And then, oh, by the way, maybe we're like-minded, but I don't lead with like-minded anymore. There's lots of like-minded. I want to know where the other stuff that's harder to understand is, and that takes time. I have to hang out with people and try and get to know them and hopefully get a sense of that aspect of them, because then I think they'll get through the tough parts and let's do this. Let's get it done. I can convince others this is what we should do because I'm not in the business of selling anything.
I love that. Yeah, that's exactly right. You're kind of educating, enlightening, introducing, shining a light on the path, and then letting them kind of draw their own conclusions on where that intersects well. I'm gonna go back just 2.5, I guess maybe 3 years ago. Gosh, it seems like yesterday seems like a long time ago, because you're in the heart of, I'm going to tell our listeners, the ERCOT market. You're in Dallas-Fort Worth. You've got relationships around the state. You experienced Winter Storm Uri, which had a very, I would love to see the socio-economic, psychological studies of how that, anomaly event, what its impact in the energy sector, clean energy sector, what we're talking about was, is, and will continue to be, because I think it's fairly significant. So, yes. You were in were you one of the fortunate few that had power? What was just Michael's personal experience? And then let's kind of translate that into where I want to go with this is, did that event change a little bit of the perspective in the commercial industrial CEO board of directors on, holy cow, maybe it's not just magically going to always be there?
Yeah, for sure. So here at our place, we were fortunate, didn't lose power. I was grateful. And after I learned what was happening across the state, I was a little surprised, but it worked. I've got an almost 100-year-old house that got through this and got through the thing we had just a few weeks ago and got through the thing last year. But I would also then pick on your word anomaly, because I just referenced 3 weeks ago when we had consistently about 10 degrees in Dallas for a few days. That is new. I'm from here. These are not anomalies anymore. These are the new normals.
It's true.
Right?
Yeah, it's true.
So I'm just picking on your word, but I know you agree that it's the new normal now. So yes to the word resilience is the business word about this, right? Resilience, and then maybe mitigation, adaptation. So yes, it's being discussed more for sure. What can we do to better serve tenants? Or if you're the owner operator of your own building in your business, you're going, how can we minimize disruption by these new traumatic weather events and thus not have to be shut down and not have employees come and function? I believe that the bigger impact was at home, of course, because that's where a lot of the really bad things happened. People got scared, trapped, deaths in Texas, all that. So I think the acute effect of Winter Storm Uri in one sense has been more residential solar, but definitely having an impact on business executives, no question. What they want to do about it still is that, thing that we want to become normal. Like take one measure, put solar on the rooftop of your business, check that off and go, okay, we can do other things, but that's a big one.
Yep. I had a conversation with, when I was college director for a church ministry years ago. One of my college students has gone into the corporate world. She's now in the accounting controller position for a big manufacturing company in Dallas and Arlington. And the conversation just came up. She's like, I can't tell you how much revenue was lost because of the lack of power, resiliency, et cetera, et cetera. And just, another element in, their analysis of, okay, how important is, on time, resilient, steady power, in the manufacturing industrial space. And so, I think, again, those light bulbs are going off more regularly in the minds of decision makers in terms of, okay, maybe the payback is X, Y, or Z on a spreadsheet. But there's a lot of other factors that we need to give consideration to in terms of, certainly the rooftop solar. I think it's interesting to see the rooftop solar in combination at times with the battery assets. Sure. And yes. In the ERCOT markets that are now beginning to create these market mechanisms where demand response programs, distributed generation programs that we've talked through with some different projects is opening up new ways for decision makers to leverage, monetize these assets.
Amen. And this is a huge thing. And it's one of those things that, the average business owner, I believe, and the average citizen don't get, because again, always it was flip the switch, power comes on, write the check, it'll keep coming. That was it. It was this thing out there. But now, and this is a big part of the education thing, and where I at the state level, we really need this happening, and it's not happening nearly well enough in Texas yet. So that's another thing I try and do. I serve on the City of Dallas Environmental Commission, where a big part is educating the community here around, okay, we now have these power assets that can be behind the meter, and people kind of get what that means. Okay, on my property, okay, and it helps you, but it also can be designed, because we also have this cool thing called the internet and technology that allows my power plant that I would have never thought I could have before, communicate with the larger grid, because maybe I have extra resource right now and they need it. And the technology and signals are being put into place now in the architectures, so that I can lend/sell, whatever the model is, to the market, some asset that I have that we couldn't do in the past. It was only the big grid, only utility scale power plants, whatever kind of power they were. Now it's this great new, much more controllable resource with the batteries too. So this is dramatic change in architecture, just like we had a dramatic change in computing architecture from mainframes to then the internet to distributed computing to open computing, and everybody carrying one in their pocket. It's the same thing as everybody having one on their roof now. We just got to get people to get it. And part of what I do, I talk all the time about, is just like what's happening in computing in your life. Same thing. It's just power. It's a thing. You're going to have a device. It's bigger than a device, but we'll call it that if that works.
And we're consuming, and we need more electrons, electricity, for all the many, many reasons. As the state of Texas, we're growing in population. We're growing. Hey, this is a great thing. We're growing in our manufacturing, industrial, mining capacities. We're growing in the EV evolution of things. All of those industries, we've got Bitcoin mining facilities. We've got data centers. Texas and Dallas is one of the biggest data centers in the country. They all require a common element. More electrons.
Yeah. No, the electrification is a giant movement. Even though we're getting more efficient per person, that's good. But the macro growth is greater than that. So you're right. The aggregate demand is definitely growing. The good news is we're getting more efficient about things, and that's nice. So we can do better per unit, but that's not going to change. The decarbonization, emissions reduction strategy means we must electrify. And so thus, these kinds of technologies are going to continue to grow in demand and value, and just understanding of them by our fellow citizens, because they're not weirdos in this business like I am.
Well, and I thought it was interesting too. Elon Musk made this comment, and he certainly sits in the epicenter of this electrification. Tesla Energy is, I think, one of going to be the bigger sections of his Tesla empire. But when he was talking about Texas, we're in a very, I think, desirable, enviable position in that we actually have lots of these natural resources, both in the ground and above the ground. You know, the wind resource, the sun resource, certainly oil and gas resources. And I thought it was interesting coming from his lips. He said, listen, we need every form of energy out there. We certainly need to improve on our, emissions input, but we need all the resources we can get. We can't just shut off one entire resource, and I think that speaks to Texas. But as we kind of wind up here, I thought one good kind of, I'm not going to call it a story, but Michael and I worked really closely for a period of time, and we'll leave some of the particular names off. But what I want Michael to just kind of tell a little bit, because I think listeners, I want them to capture the practicality of where some of these unique projects can begin to go. Because Michael pulled me in and we worked for a while on a university project, and then a private energy company that had a lot of expertise in this energy space. And Michael kind of shared the vision of where that was going, because I'm still convinced a project like that, maybe, in a slightly variation to it, we're going to see take place. But I love the vision behind its impact in all of its different ways, both at the university, the community, the private business level, because I think that's a good story for people to grab their brains around. Wow, that's possible.
Sure. Yeah, no, happy to. And yeah, I remember that was fun that we met and started working around that. So we haven't yet mentioned equity and access in underserved communities, because that's another super important part of what's happening here with the transition with energy. In other words, we want any homeowner, for instance, to be able to figure out finance, just like buying a car, get it on their roof, if they got a good roof of their home, for instance. So this project that you were talking about, Josh, to share with the audience, was focused in underserved area of South Dallas. University was there that had an interest in doing things to for their own sustainability strategy, to have some clean energy on the property. And then through this process with the energy partner, as you mentioned, we got to look at this whole combination of things on the campus behind the meter, as well as then how can this impact, if you do this very sophisticated, pretty large scale solar and battery system at this site, how can it then also participate in the market? Especially if you think about it's a time when it is what it is. Even if you have power going and the streets are covered in snow and ice, you're probably going to say, students, stay home a couple days. Then you don't need so much power. Then you can sell that power to the market, make some money on it, because you're a school, and we all know there's not a school in America that has enough money. So it also economically benefited them. It enabled them. Again, the vision was to serve their community in a way they had never thought about, and also, serve their own sustainability strategy. So it had a lot of really great attributes, and I think we'll return to that. It's a project we kind of have in pause mode, so I hope we'll go back to that and continue to work on that. But I love the fact that it was very focused, underserved community, bigger market serving, sustainability strategy of this school. A lot of fun stuff to it. And it was going to help drive some of the innovative new structures in the Texas power market. So we were a little ahead of our time, Josh, darn it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Let's offline, let's resume that.
That's exactly right. And I think that's what I love about interacting and spending time with Michael. And so if you're, listen, if you're commercial, industrial, and you're beginning to kind of have some of these questions, Michael is a tremendous resource. His solar advisory, his relationships in the community around the state. I mean, you can just kind of hear it. It just oozes out of him. And, I really do think as we continue to look into today and tomorrow, whether these solutions are not quite there yet, we're going to meet customers, and we're going to deliver ways to solve and serve communities, households, businesses. And man, that feels good, doesn't it?
It does, for sure. And the other thing I will say is that, perfect is the enemy of good, right? And the good news is, I love to share this quote sometimes. In 62, President Kennedy's down at Rice in Houston, and he's not very far away from the Houston where they're training all the astronauts. And he announces in the football stadium in his famous speech, he goes, we're going to send we're going to put a man on the moon before the end of the century. And all those guys a few miles away at the astronaut training center are like, how the hell are we going to do that? Because they hadn't figured it out yet, right? And they barely made it by 5 months in July of '69. I remember this as a kid. And so the thing about that was he puts out the challenge and they're going, we don't know how we're going to do it, but the president says we will, so we will.
Right.
Anybody listening to this should know we've got all the technologies, solar, batteries, wind, we can go on and on, efficiency measures and smart thermostats and and the internet to help all these things work better together. And so the good news is, perfect is an enemy of good. These things are going to continue to get better as they have in other things we're used to, like computing technologies. So it's no reason to wait for the better, perfect solution.
That's
that
right.
will never happen. And I love that you said that I ooze this. Thank you for that, because I don't sell. I'm going to start saying to people, I ooze. So
Yeah,
gave me
you
a new marketing tagline.
That's
Josh.
right.
Thank you.
That's right. And Michael, tell us how can people connect with you? Email, online, website. What's kind of some ways they can connect back to you?
Well, the easy way is just go to mmsolaradvisory.com, as in Michael Martin, solaradvisory.com. So can get to me there and get a better sense of the value proposition, how it works, what I do, and how we can serve. So that would be just fine. So thanks for.
Well, I highly recommend it. And again, if you couldn't tell, I love it because Michael's not just going to deliver real tangible solutions, but he's going to do it in a way that's really empowering. That's, I think, uplifting to you. And in this day and age, Michael, man, that is so needed and necessary. And I appreciate it tremendously. So thank you for joining us on the All Energy podcast. Man, we could talk for a long time, and it's fun to delve into the past, the present, and where the future is taking us. So,
well, let's keep working on it. We got a lot of good work to still do, and it's for me, it's self-motivating. There's just so many reasons to keep at this, and we're going to keep doing that. So I look forward to chatting with you again soon, Josh. Thank you for having me.
Michael. Thank you, and until the next time, we'll see y'all. Thank you again for joining us on the All Things Energy podcast. And if you want to follow on in our energy journey as we're helping customers, friends, family, homeowners, businesses, follow, subscribe, website Get Rise Energy. You can check us out on our Facebook page, our Instagram page, or YouTube. Again, that's Get Rise Energy. We're the All Things Energy podcast and the gurus. So let us know how we can help you. Have a great day.